Hi yogis, thanks for joining. I'm Tovah and this is my channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed today's video. So today we are working on our quadriceps, or our quads, so the front of the thigh. So we're going to work on stretching out that area, and why that's important for you. Not only can your quads get really tight, but often if your quads are carrying too much tension, that can be causing you to have some pain or issues with the knees, as well as into the hip flexor or the front of the hip. And then that can also create some back pain from there. So this is a really great area to work on, and today's class is short and sweet. So let's get to it. Begin today's class in a lunging position. So if you have a small cushion or a towel that you might like to place underneath your knee just to give it a little bit of support, of course you can always fold your mat over for a little extra cushioning as well. So we're going to start by putting our right knee down on the cushion and then stepping forward with the left leg until you've got some distance between your knee and your hip here. So your aim is to slide the back leg far enough back that you've got a little bit of a distance between the knee and the hip. If you are super tight in the quads here, you might find that you're stacked one over top of the other, and that's always okay. Just know that the direction that you want to be moving and progressing as you work on opening that area. So we're just going to ease in here, and of course you could use a block to put your hands on here. Your thigh works really nice, especially for a lot of people. Coming up a little higher can be good to help keep your back in a neutral position. So for lots of people, when they come down really low, what happens is their bum pushes back, their back rounds, and you end up losing a lot of the stretch through the front of the hip here. So we do really want the thigh to drop forward so that we can really open up from the front of the thigh. So open up the quadriceps and into the hip flexors, because one of our quadricep muscles is a hip flexing muscle. So it's important that they work together here. So keeping the chest up a little bit will give you a little bit more stretch through the hip for most people, as well as keeps our spine neutral, which keeps our back nice and happy. And since this is a little bit more of an active pose, we're not going to stay here too long. Just a few more breaths. And in this posture, if you feel like that you could go a little bit deeper, try lifting the arms up. And if you only want to lift one arm, lift the right arm up. So the same arm as the leg, as we extend that line of stretch across the hip, up through the chest and shoulders, we can go a little bit deeper. Deeper still, add just a little bit of a back bend. Lift your chin, eyes coming to the ceiling. Perfect. Let's find our way out of this stretch. Just ease back. And then if you're using a cushion, you can just switch it over to the opposite side here. I find it's always nice to stay in that position a little bit longer to give the knees a little bit of protection. That way your 60-year-old self will thank you if you're a younger yogi practicing today. And if you are someone who already is a little bit older, maybe has some knee pain, which can happen far before 60, it's accumulation of the things that we put our body through throughout our life. So the more we can be gentle to our knees, the longer they're going to be happier. You want to feel like you're relaxing and releasing into this posture. Feeling like your hips are dropping forward or being gently pulled down towards the floor. And staying just a few more breaths if you wanted to add the left arm reach. Feel free to add both arms if you like, maybe looking up towards the roof, just finding the right amount of stretch for you. Perfect. Good, and we're gonna back away from this position. So you can just take that little cushion and put it off to the side now, and make your way all the way down onto your tummy. So our next quadricep asana is gonna bring us into a lying quad stretch. So in this position, when we lie flat, you might already be really tight through the hips, and this might be enough of a stretch for you. So you could always opt just to put your head down and just lie flat here if that's feeling like it's more than enough. Otherwise, we're gonna go ahead and bend the right leg up. And you might just be lying here with your leg bent. If you can add a little deeper stretch, you're gonna take a hold of the foot with your hand. Of course, you could use a strap or a towel here as well, resting your head down. And our aim here is to try to keep our hips down. So not allowing your bum to lift up here or the front of your hip to come off the mat. We want to think about pushing our hip points down in towards the floor. Good, releasing the foot if it was held. Just letting both legs come down straight, relaxing for a moment with both legs down. Perfect, and then switching to the opposite side. Remember, this might just be lying flat and still for you. It might be just bending one leg, or it might be reaching and gently drawing the foot closer towards your buttocks. And if you are doing this stretch standing up, not that it's terrible standing, but this can often be a better option for people to get a more thorough stretch. Because for lots of people, when they do this position standing up, the leg that's bent is actually coming forward. So because we're on the floor, we can't allow our knee to come forward here. And when we do that in a standing position, it takes most of the stretch out of the hip flexor. So we're missing a big part of the stretch if we're only getting some of the quadricep muscles and not getting into that big hip flexor, often which is one of the main culprits or problems why we're tight. So this can be a better option. Good, and gently releasing from this posture. And just coming back to the center for a moment. Perfect. The last posture we're moving into is half hero. And I'm going to give you a couple of options when we get into this position to make it a little bit easier for those who may find this to be too strong of a stretch for them. But know that if you just can't find a position in half hero that's going to work for you, you can go back and go into that front line quadricep stretch position. It's a great way to work on opening the area so that you can get into this position eventually. So I'm going to use a long bolster for today. You could have a couple of cushions piled up, and of course you could do this right on the floor as well. I just find that I like the bolster. It gives a little bit of height if you're a little bit tight in this position, but it also gives you a little bit more stretch or openness through the chest and shoulders compared to lying all the way flat. So when I do it without the cushion, I don't get quite as much of a stretch through the front, and you know, everybody's pressed for time, so it's nice to kind of do two things at once sometimes. So you're going to start by sitting just near the edge of your bolster. And of course, if you were using a shorter bolster here, you want to make sure that you also have something to put your head on. This could also be tucking a couple of blocks underneath the cushion to make it a little bit higher if you need to. So we're going to start by just allowing your legs to tip to the side, so like a windshield wiper here. So I just windshield wiper my legs, allow them to tip to the side. And this leg that's bent, you want to make sure that it's comfortable. So the toes might be forward, they might be back, you might be tucked in tighter, you might be more loose. Okay, so there's lots of options here. Your knee might not be all the way on the floor. And then the opposite leg, we're just going to stretch it out straight. Okay, so getting into that comfortable position, and then you might just start to lean back a little bit, open up the hips from there. If it feels better for you to go back a little further, maybe you're going to come onto your elbows, or maybe you're going to allow yourself to lay all the way back. Okay, and what this might look like if you're not as flexible, you might stay in that windshield wiper position. So you might just wipe to the side and just allow both legs to stay bent. You could tuck a cushion underneath one or both knees here to give you a little bit of support. And just by allowing the legs to wiper to one side, you're going to get a stretch through the front of the one hip and into the quadricep there. Okay, so again, finding the option that's going to work for you. And then just settle in here. Use your props to make you comfortable. And even though this can be a more demanding stretch, I still only want you to feel like it's about a 7 out of 10. So use the options and use your props to make sure that it's not becoming too difficult for you. Good, and an easier way to come out of this often is just allowing yourself to start to roll to the side and then straighten out the legs. And you might decide that you want to lie back for a couple of breaths. You might want to sit up. Feel free to bend your knees or maybe go back to a little bit of that windshield wiper action. or maybe you just want to be still for a couple of breaths. And when you're feeling ready, not rushing here, start to make your way into this position on the opposite side. And know that this is one of those positions where how you need to do it from the left side to the right side could be very different. So just, again, easing yourself through the levels here until you find the right amount. And of course, this could always be going back to position number 2, where we're lying on our stomach and working on stretching out the front of the thigh from there. Taking just a couple of last deep breaths from here. And then slowly easing yourself away from the position. Bringing yourself back to a comfortable seated or kneeling place on your mat. And if you would like to move into a Savasana now, please feel free to lie back and stay there. Or you can come into the description of today's video and I'll post in a link to a Savasana only practice so that you can rest for about 10 more minutes and add on to today's practice. Finishing with our hands at our heart. The light within me honors the light within you. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. I'm Tovah. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.